Hello, and welcome to Stellar Strategy Gaming. Today we will be discussing the alignment system, or more specifically, the chaotic section of the alignment system. But just as a general baseline, so you know what chaotic is if you're relatively new to D&D, there is effectively a up-down axis on the alignment spectrum, which is how your character views societal laws and things like that, which is the lawful and chaotic axis, as it were, with the other one being good and evil. And we tend to find here that no one really understands how to play a good chaotic character. They're either murder hobos or they act almost too lawful for the setting. Very often, these characters are also the most susceptible to metagaming because people don't know how to play them, and so they just do whatever's most convenient for the situation.
Now, there are extensive commentaries on YouTube and other resources about how people get chaotic characters wrong. How to Be a Great Game Master did a great one on I think he called it Chaotic Stupid, where people are just they play a chaotic character as I'm always going to be doing something wild and crazy, and I don't care if I'm high enough level and powerful enough to get away with it. That has a lot of problems, not least of them is that it derails the campaign very quickly. If your chaotic fighter is murdering every person they meet and pillaging every shop they walk into, the game master has the option of essentially making your decisions not matter, turning it into a video game where the plot progresses no matter what you do, or it turns into a campaign where whatever the authorities are just after you. The whole town guard, the whole whoever is in charge is now trying to kill your party.
Yes, and I'm going to use what I personally believe to be the pinnacle of the chaotic alignment for this example, which is the Joker from one of the Dark Knight movies. I forget which one. But he is the most chaotic character put to film who is competent, in my opinion. And that is only solidified by the fact that he really shows what an actually thought out chaotic character can be, as he's not just randomly setting stuff on fire. I mean, he does do that once, but it's all part of a plan that he has laid out. He even quite famously says, "Do I look like a guy with a plan?" And as my dad likes to point out here, yes, he definitely has a plan. But that is something that people don't understand, is that chaotic characters can think things through and can have plans months in advance. We also see with the Joker that part of where his power comes from is that he also shook up the underworld in the beginning. It's how he's able to facilitate all of these operations, is he just actively defying even criminal society. So if you have a chaotic neutral character, which weirdly I actually kind of believe the Joker to be closer to chaotic neutral than chaotic evil, then you can totally have that be a thing. That's a way to have your character gain power without necessarily annoying the authorities, is just shake up the underworld or something like that.
And it's important to point out there that often, if you're truly representing chaos, if chaos is something you believe in, then you have to have a plan to make it work. This is actually covered extensively in the D&D lore. In the lore, in the famously chaotic Drow society, House Bainray essentially comes to supreme power in the Drow city of Menzoberranzan. They are unchallengeable, and they attempt an invasion of a dwarven kingdom, which results in the leadership of House Bainray dying. Now, House Bainray remains the most powerful house, but their power has been significantly depleted, and it creates a much more chaotic situation in the city. And in the end, one of the characters who's talking to Lolth, the spider goddess who the Drow worship, says, "This is what you wanted, wasn't it?" And that's the whole point, is that to be truly effectively chaotic, you almost have to have a plan, unless you're just essentially a circus clown, doing parlor tricks to entertain kids.
Yes, and a lot of people might be thinking, oh, but isn't having a plan order and therefore the pinnacle of anti-chaos? But I point you to another source of D&D lore, which is the Plane of Limbo. It's literally the fundamental aspect of chaos. And two interesting bits about that lore confirm that, no, it's definitely in Chaos's nature to have a certain level of order to it. First off, the only people who can live there are the Gith, for the most part, who are lawful aligned for them, usually. And so that chaos innately benefits law. But on top of all of that, when the fundamental plane of law, Mechanus, attacks Limbo. Limbo does the one thing which nobody expects it to do, and accepts order. It does calm down in the lore to some extent, though it does end up striking back at Mechanus after a while. But that's the thing, is what is the most unexpected thing for Chaos to do? Accept order and have a plan, things like that.
On a more personal level, on a more day-to-day level, if you think about it, if you want to take a walk through any town and your alignment is lawful, what are you going to do? You're going to stop at red lights. If you're walking, you're going to pay attention to the crosswalks. You're going to pay for anything you take. If a shopkeeper asks you to leave, you're going to leave. If a police officer says move along, you're going to move along. You're going to do everything anybody in a position of power tells you to do, because that's, to a large extent, that's what lawful is. And even if you have a problem, you're not going to stand there and fight the person. You're going to report it to the appropriate authorities and go through appropriate channels. Now, if you are chaotic, if your plan is to steal, if your plan is to fight, for you to do that, you need to have a plan. You need to know what you're going to take from what shop and how you're going to get away, and etc. and so on. So, essentially, having a plan is actually much more important to a chaotic character than a lawful character. It is less work to be lawful. A couple of other examples of chaotic characters from fiction that I like to point out. You can definitely have a conversation about whether Heath Ledger's Joker would be chaotic evil or chaotic neutral. I would say John Wick is definitely a case of someone who is chaotic neutral. He doesn't really care what the crime families are doing, but they mess with him and with his dog. He's after them. And he absolutely has a well laid out plan for how he's going to deal with the situation, at least in the first movie. Additionally, perhaps a little more controversial, but in Captain America, especially Captain America Civil War, he completely throws off authority. He goes against orders and he goes out completely on his own. But there again, he assembles a team to do it. And he has a very clear idea of what it is he's going to do. And that really comes through in how things play out, because it becomes clear that his team has more and better planning than Tony Stark's counter team.
Yes, and to expand upon Captain America, people might be saying, oh, well, that's a later circumstance that doesn't count. But even in the original movie, he directly defies orders to go behind enemy lines and rescue people. And in Captain America Winter Soldier, even before he learns that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been taken over by Hydra, spoilers for a years-old movie, anyway, even before he learns that, he still does not like how authoritarian S.H.I.E.L.D. is becoming, and defies orders to some extent to get Nick Fury to safety and to do things like that. And so that is a fundamental part of his character. I don't even think it's controversial if you look at his actions.
And now the next obvious question is, well, how do I apply this to my D&D character? How do I apply this to my chaotic gnome barbarian, or whatever it is you've made? And the answer, I think, is that you can have that chaotic character. You can have that character who's looking to disrupt things, but it doesn't mean that they're disrupting things every single session. What it means is, when the Holy Order of Paladins tasks your party with going and clearing the woods of goblins, that character is going to ask questions. Why are we clearing the woods of these goblins? Why do we need to bother the goblins if they're in their own woods? Why are we taking orders from these paladins? Why do these paladins run anything? Who put them in charge and why? They're going to ask a lot of awkward questions, and by doing this, they're going to flesh out the world. It's going to be the difference between a party that essentially talks to Mr. Q Giver, who tells you what it is you're supposed to go do, and then you go do it without any question. And it's going to be the party who talks to Mr. Q Giver and then asks, who are you? Who gave you the authority to tell us to march into the goblins' territory and murder a bunch of them? You want us to go kill an orc chieftain? Okay, you do realize that means we're leaving your lands and killing a head of state. This is kind of a big deal. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that your party are actually thinking and are actually interacting with the world in a meaningful way.
Oh, yes. Chaotic is definitely the best for constructing an overall world and generally helping with the development of society and with things like that. The other one is that I saw this on Reddit the other day. I'll be sure that the meme is on screen now. But if you buy a magic item from a shop, that costs what, like 2,000 gold, maybe? And then you find out it's not that useful and you try to sell it back, the shopkeeper might say you can get 10 gold for it instead. The lawful character is going to accept that. Honestly, one of the bigger things I hate about D&D is the haggling issues around it, but that's for another video. The lawful character is probably going to accept that. The neutral character is going to shrug and probably turn to his friends, because no one plays true neutral. But the chaotic character is going to argue about that. They're going to ask about that. And that's another thing, is that with the chaotic characters, you can actually start up a lot more. There's a much more in-character justification for things like that. Why should we accept that we're only going to get 10 gold back for an unused artifact?
Absolutely. So yeah, I hope this video has been sort of interesting and helpful. I hope it gets you thinking about what it is you can do with your character. You can still have your character be an agent of chaos. You can still have your character be an agent of upheaval. But you don't need for your character to attempt to steal, murder, or have sex with everything they encounter in the game. That's cute on your first campaign and your first campaign only. And you got to realize it very quickly ceases to be fun for the rest of the party. And with that, I'm going to say we thank you very much for watching and listening. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next one.